All right, guys, just got done rebuilding my engine here in the driveway for my 87 GMC pickup. So there's something that bugs the crap out of me, and I'm sure a lot of other owners of lots of GM vehicles, maybe Ford and Chevy, or Ford and Mopar, I don't know, but for sure this model of truck, the steering wheel, when you leave your vehicle out in the sun, I actually left the truck sitting out here in the yard yesterday all night. So I just went out to move it about 20 minutes ago, and of course there's that goopy crap that gets on your hands here every time you grab the steering wheel, and I always keep it clean, but you know, when it sets it just forms that stuff again. What I think it is, it's the resins in the plastic or rubber, whatever it's made out of. I'm sure it has a certain name of what it's made up of, but I think the resins start coming out of it, and that's what causes it. I just wiped it off really good with some urethane reducer on a microfiber, and I got a lot of it off, and it's pretty slick. And then I went back with another microfiber and used wax and grease remover. And like when I'm touching it, it's very, very smooth and slick. But I know, like if I go somewhere and leave the truck out in the sun for any period of time, when I come back out, it's going to be sticky again. So the cure-all fix-all to do this is painting it, actually spray painting it. There is a product called, in the industry, it's called vinyl dye. It's really just a trim paint. It's a brand, SEM. They're not a sponsor, but they have a color called Landau Black. Now you want to use the Landau Black because it's not super glossy. They do have, I think, a gloss black, and it doesn't look right when it's on a plastic vinyl rubber part. It needs to be the Landau Black because it has that pretty much the same sheen after you spray it. Now what that does is when you put it on there, the resin won't come back out anymore, but you have to make sure this is super clean. Now there's lots of, you know, when you think about it, leather wrap steering wheels, it's just a dye on the leather. So I have vinyl dyed mini steering wheels, lots of Monte Carlo SS ones, lots of Grand National Buick ones. Well, not lots, but at least a few. Lots of G-bodies. But it just always seems to fix it, and you don't have the issue anymore. So my horn doesn't work, which it's not going to work right now anyway, because I already unhooked the negative post on the battery. I'm going to go ahead and try to clean up my horn contacts and see if I can get the horn to work. I'm assuming that this is just probably just rusty contacts. I don't know. I can already see the insulator here is broken to pieces. I may have one of those. I'll just have to look. But anyway, I'm going to take the steering wheel off of the truck and clean it some more. And I'm going to use a toothbrush down in all the grooves, because you can still see I left some here, or missed some anyway. And I'm going to go back and use Landau Black and put a few coats on this, and that should fix it from doing it ever again. It works really good on Monte Carlo SS's, I know for sure, because I've done several of those. Alright, so this is pretty basic stuff, so I'm not going to go through and show everything. I mean, most people's probably use a steering wheel puller. This is an inexpensive one from the parts store. I mean, very, very inexpensive. And I used it to get the steering wheel off. It has this one had a spring down in here. And it had 3 screws holding on the center piece. And this is supposed to be one round ring thing with 3 tabs on it. Of course, the round ring part's broken. I don't know that that's absolutely necessary, but definitely need these parts around that so it doesn't short out or, you know, go to ground so make your horn go off. So anyway, I have started. I took this in my house and I cleaned it in the sink, and I used Windex and a toothbrush and really scrubbed this thing down real good. Now the worst part I noticed that these steering wheels hold stuff in is in all these little, you know, sunk in grooves around the steering wheel here. There's one on the inside and there's one on the outside. So it was a lot of scrub brushing. Also down in this, what looks like threading in here, or thread. And then in the slots here, where your finger grips, all down in there, it was really gummy. brown gummy junk in there. But anyway, I used a scrub brush and cleaned everything, and now I'm going back over it. I'm using wax and grease remover. I will tell you, probably the best thing I noticed to get stuff off of this is reducer, like enamel reducer or urethane reducer for automotive paint. That stuff really cleans that off there, especially if you're using a grippy side of a microfiber rag. But anyway, I've just about got it. I'm going to give it one more final wipe down. I'm sweating real bad, and I'm getting sweat on this, and that's absolutely the worst thing to do when you're going to paint something. Now, you don't want to go in there and just blast your first coat of paint on there. You'll kind of go in there and just kind of work the whole thing, just doing medium coats on it. Don't go in there and just really hose it. If you start painting it and you're getting fish eyes, you need to take that reducer or wax and grease remover, whatever, and wipe it all back down again, and you need to keep cleaning it. You have to make sure this is absolutely clean, because if there are any traces of crap on this, that paint will not stick and it'll start flaking off. Key to this success of this is preparation, 100%. But I can guarantee you this will keep you from getting sticky hands on it. Now, obviously, this is spray paint. I've had them to where they've lasted from the whole time I owned the car, but obviously its prep is key. Now, you know, I can't vouch for everybody's steering wheel, you know, not lasting, but you can always go back and shoot it again, you know, touch it back up if you want to. You won't use the whole can on the steering wheel. Probably use quite a bit of it, but I don't think you'd use all of it. So I'm going to go ahead, and I've already cleaned this up. I used a wire brush on the drill down in there and held it at an angle. So I cleaned all these parts separately with, I think it was 220 grit sandpaper. Cleaned them back up to clean metal, especially this back side of this cup that goes down in there. This needs to be clean. Also, make sure you notice the notch in that cup. It has a notch, and that is to clear the cap that goes on there. There's a notch in that cap that goes down in that. I think it's, I didn't look when I took it apart. I think it's always at the top, but double check that before you snap that on there. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and mask off this little area. I'm just going to put some tape in here, and I'm going to get to painting. Alright, so I've taped off that center just kind of roughly. I'm not going to worry about getting paint all down on every single thing, but did put gloves on. Very important if you're going to do wax and grease remover, because if you've got oily hands or sweaty or whatever, you're just going to recontaminate the wheel. Now this is for me sticking my finger in the edge of that microfiber and running it in these grooves, and that's the kind of crap that still come out of there after I scrub brush this. So I'm going to give this a final spray down with some wax and grease remover. And it's like 98 degrees out here today, so this stuff is drying very quickly. Just going to give it a nice little going over here. I can hear the rag being grippy on it now, so that's a good sign. I'm not getting anything off on the rag fresh. Okay, now that it's pretty clean, because the rag's coming out clean, if I can find what I did with it. There it is. Got a gray Scotch-Brite, so I'm gonna go through here and just lightly scuff this just a little bit. This gray works really nice for this type of stuff because you don't want heavy scratches in it. This is really one of the most annoying things that my really only complaint about the truck was in the summertime. You go to work and then you come out, you get in your truck, and it's the steering wheel, like your hands stick to it and they don't want to release. It's just nasty. That stuff is the gift that keeps on giving because you get it on your hand and it's hard to get off there. Alright, so got that scuffed down a little bit, and I'm going to hit it again. Again, going back to cleanliness is key. Now this is a brand new microfiber out of the package. This has not been washed in a washing machine. You don't want to use that. Any kind of rag that's been in your washing machine, because it'll have traces of, fabric softener or something on there, and it will cause all kinds of problems. Fish eyes and flaking paint and that type of stuff. Adhesion problems, basically. I can't believe how dirty this was. I mean, it's just, and I cleaned it on the truck before I took it off. And when I went in there scrub brushing it, it was nasty. I like the aerosol wax and grease remover because it's less waste than pouring it on a rag out of a can, you know what I mean? But you can use whatever you want. It's just my preference. Alright, and I got a tack rag here. Just barely running it across there. You don't want to bear down with a tack rag because it'll leave that wax behind. Or whatever that crap is. I heard it was paraffin wax or something like that. I don't know if it's true or not. Tack ragging, it's not a super big deal. You could probably blow it off and it'd be fine, but it is, well, it's supposed to be grained. This one is not, however. The grain is pretty worn off. I've got some residue right there from that tack rag where it got into it, so I'm going to do that. This truck, I bought it from my father-in-law several years back, and he's owned it since sometime in the 90s. Truck wasn't very old when he bought it. He always drove like this on the steering wheel, and there's marks on here you can see from his thumbs. And the grain's completely slicked off of the steering wheel, and that's why I will never change the steering wheels, because those marks are from his hands. That is how he drove. So, all right, so what I've got here is Landau Black Sim color coat. I'm gonna shake it up pretty good. I'm gonna try to paint this dude. Let's try to paint the back first. This stuff dries really quick, especially when it's this hot outside. So really put your, keep going around it with medium coats and stuff, and then you can, after you see it flash off, which it's doing it real quick because of the heat, then you can go in a pretty heavy coat on. Don't go in heavy right off the bat because it usually, you can kind of see the crazing or the fisheye look going on. So let that kind of kick off a little bit. So if you had a little turntable or like I think it's called a Lazy Susan, you could set it on there and spin it around. It works pretty good. I used to have I think it's in my shed and I just don't want to go find the key, unlock it, and climb in there and dig it out. I've got an old steering shaft that I used to paint like Tri-5 Chevy steering wheels. It's just the shaft itself, and I could stick it in the back of them steering wheels, and then you got something to hold on to, or you can you know, set it down inside your trash can where it's sticking up in the air, and you can spin the shaft while you paint it. So that works pretty good, but I'm just going to do it like this. I remember when I was really young, my middle brother, Don, he bought a 71 Chevelle. Car had been sitting out in these people's driveway for, I don't know how many, maybe a year or two or whatever. Anyway, he went down there to look at the car to buy it. I went with him. He got in the car and he put his hand on the steering wheel, and it was covered in that gunk, you know what I mean? And I remember him pulling his hand off and looking at it like, what the? And we laughed. He said something kind of dirty, and I don't want to say that, but he'll remember. If he sees this video, he'll remember. I am not left-handed. I shouldn't be doing that left-handed. I'm going to do a little horn center piece too, but I'll have to mask off the little logo and all that stuff, the clear plastic insert that's in it. It has a lot of weather cracks at the bottom, little cracks in the clear plastic, but it'd be alright. I'm going to go ahead and mask it off and paint it too, but I have to clean it up as well. So anyway, there's the steering wheel painted, and it's not super glossy. In your face with the shine, you know what I mean? So when that, you know, pretty much dries, it'll have a real nice, you know, low gloss color, and it should work pretty good in there. And no more resin coming through. That'll somewhat be a little bit of a UV protectant. I don't know if that has actually got a UV protectant in it, but it will stop it, I promise you. All right, so there it is installed. I didn't even paint this actually. I just went ahead and put it back on there, and you can't tell the difference in it. So it looks pretty much the same. A lot smoother. You can hear it. No more sticky. Problem is the horn don't work. I plugged the battery back in, but horn still don't work. I'm not getting a click, which makes me think the horn relay is not working. I'll have to investigate that. Thanks for watching.